Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Great to have you in the conversation today. In the monologue today, last segment, I was talking about the fact that a writer for the Huffington Post, homosexual writer for the Huffington Post, said that gay men have been at the heart of every fascist movement that ever was, including the Third Reich, including Nazis. He referred to Ernst Röhm as the founding father of Nazism. He was an out loud and proud homosexual. He was the founding father of Nazism, according to this writer for the Huffington Post. And according to historian Louis Snyder, distinguished historian, even the New York Times acknowledged that he was an authority on the rise of Nazism. Louis Snyder says that Ernst Röhm, the founding father of Nazism, quote, believed straight people weren't as adept as bullying and aggression as homosexuals. So homosexuality was given a high premium in the SA, which is exactly what I said. This is the quote that Carol Costello read on CNN. That's when she started getting all testy and started the process of cutting my water off. That was the same thing that distinguished historian Louis Snyder has been saying for decades. So, their problem is not with me, Carol Costello's problem, CNN's problem, whoever, the gay activists, their problem is not with me. Their problem is with a historian that the New York Times says is one of the top authorities on the rise of Nazism. But the interesting thing to me is to see the connection that this homosexual writer for the Huffington Post made between homosexuality and fascism. And that's one of the reasons why I constantly say we are going to have to choose between homosexual behavior and liberty, because it is not possible for us to have both. We as a culture are going to have to choose. A lot of people don't understand that. A lot of people don't realize that. They think we can accommodate it, we can expand, we can capitulate, we can make room, everything's going to be fine, we can accommodate the homosexual agenda, and we can hang on to our moral values as a people. We can't do it. We are going to have to choose, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here as a, and this is, I'm not saying I'm a prophet, so please don't understand me. I'm just saying what prophets do, what prophetic voices do, is it's the role of someone who has a prophetic voice to alert people to coming danger before they can see it. I mean, if it's already here and they're under it, then it's too late to sound the alarm. And that's why prophetic voices, the prophets in the Old Testament, often seem like they were way out in front of everybody. They were out on their own. They were like John the Baptist, a voice crying in the wilderness, a lone voice crying in the wilderness, because they could see the danger coming before the people could. And it was their job to take what they had seen, the danger and the threat that they saw coming, and make sure that people in power and that the people of the land were aware of that coming threat. And that's what prophetic voices have to do today with regard to the homosexual movement. By the way, got a story here about Mix It Up Day. Remember, this is a thinly veiled attempt of the SPLC to push the gay agenda into public schools. And by the way, I got a thank you card from the SPLC today. Somebody made a contribution to the SPLC in my honor. So let's see. The honoree is going to be named in their quarterly newspaper. So they got people now actually donating to the SPLC in my honor. But they got this Mix It Up Day. I got a story here from a newspaper in New York, the Mid-Hudson Valley. Was interviewed by this writer, Times Herald Record, somewhere in the Mid-Hudson. And apparently there was a school there that this reporter, her name is Pauline Liu, she interviewed this principal. And his school elementary school had been put on this SPLC list without his awareness and without his permission. And according to this article, he was, quote, upset to learn last Thursday that his Warwick District School was listed online as a participant. And as I mentioned, you go on the tolerance.org Mix It Up map webpage today, there is no schools listed there at all. They've wiped that thing completely clean. Got an entire map of the country. Used to have all the schools that they claimed were participating. All of those are completely gone. Now, on this same front, here's a story from Fox News. Let's see, is this Fox News? CNS News, actually, about a 26-year-old lesbian who is deployed to Afghanistan and On her way to Afghanistan, with her on her journey to Afghanistan, she brought along male hormones. So she's going through a sex change deal using hormone therapy right now to try to transition from being a female to being a male, which of course it's impossible. Every single cell in her body is female. It's never going to be different till the day she dies. That's why this is called a mental disorder. When you have a perspective of yourself that's completely out of phase with reality, with the truth, that's a disorder. That's a mental illness. And that's why transgenderism is still identified as a mental illness by the American Psychiatric Association. So apparently she's going to be known by the name Keith, or wants to be known by the name Keith. She says her voice is getting deeper. Quote, I'm getting more muscle. I feel more energy. I feel more like myself as a result of this hormone therapy. Now here's the tricky deal. Here's the interesting thing. Apparently everybody knows who this person is now. Well, I don't know. No last name is mentioned here. But according to current military policy, remember they got the don't ask, don't tell. That thing's been wiped off the books. So open homosexuals can serve now. But according to military policy right now, this is existing policy, troops that are diagnosed with, quote, gender identity disorder are deemed medically unfit for service and therefore are subject to discharge. So this woman is in violation of military policy, and people know who she is. The Military Times is the one that did this story on her. So she's over there taking hormone therapy, and she's not even eligible now to serve in the United States military because she's suffering from a mental illness. She has gender identity disorder. That is a form of mental illness. And you discharge people from the military that are mentally ill. You don't want mentally ill people going into battle to try to protect you. So we'll see what the military does with this, because if they do not discharge this woman, then that policy against transgenderism in the military is essentially meaningless. Now, I talked about the connection between homosexuality and fascism. Here's two stories that illustrate it, that we have to choose. We've got to choose between the homosexual agenda and liberty. Here is a judge in the UK who ordered two owners of the Swiss bed and breakfast in Berkshire to pay a $6,000 fine to two homosexuals for hurting their feelings. I think the technical term is injury to feelings. So these owners of this bed and breakfast, they hurt the feelings of these two homosexuals because they would not rent a double bed to them. They wanted to share a double bed. The owners of the bed and breakfast said, no, we're Christians. We believe marriage is a union of one man and one woman. We believe that sex ought to be reserved for marriage. So it's just as a matter of policy, we don't rent these cozy beds to anyone other than married couples. It's not they were singling out homosexuals. They do the same for heterosexuals who were not married. So these two homosexuals, they have their feelings hurt. They go to court and they get a $6,000 fine delivered against these two Christian owners of the bed and breakfast. And these owners of the bed and breakfast, not only are they stuck with a $6,000 fine, they could appeal it, but they've gotten hundreds of emails an hour, threatening phone calls, and threatening text messages. The husband, Mike Wilkinson, said one was hand-delivered and handwritten in capitals and said, I am coming to burn your house down. His wife says, we find this a strange justice in a society that aspires to be increasingly tolerant. They're saying, where's the tolerance here? We get a $6,000 fine for operating our business according to principles of conscience, and they've not only received arson and death threats, but obscene messages, bogus reviews on their bed and breakfast place, canceled bookings. So people will call up, they'll reserve a room, then the last minute they'll cancel, so they're out the rental and can't use the room too late, and other forms of harassment. So there is a connection between homosexuality and fascism. I mean, these bed and breakfast owners, they're living proof. Gay fascists out to shut them down, fine them $6,000, put them out of business, burn their place to the ground. That is homosexual fascism on parade. Here's another story from the UK. This is a housing manager in the UK. And again, we look at the UK, we can see what's coming to the United States. That's why it's instructive to look at what happens over there. Here's a housing manager who was demoted for what he said on his own Facebook page in his own time. Wasn't even open to the public. His Facebook page was reserved just for friends And there's a personal Facebook page. Friends and friends of friends were the only ones that had access to his Facebook page. He was demoted from his managerial position. He had his salary cut by 40% because they said, look, what you said on Facebook, that amounts to gross misconduct. Now, this goes back to February 13 of 2011, a year and a half ago. He's in court trying to get his money back. He saw an article on the BBC, and the headline on the BBC was "Gay Church Marriages Get Go-Ahead." So here was an article saying that homosexual marriages are going to be okay in the Church of England. So he goes on his own Facebook page, again, that can only be viewed by friends and friends of friends, and he said this is an equality too far. An equality too far. Just linked to the BBC article. Said this is an equality too far. There's nothing remotely hateful about that or snarky or bigoted. It's just an equality too far. That's a personal opinion. But some of the colleagues that he works with apparently are friends of his friends on Facebook. They reported him for saying this. The next day, Monday, February 14, which is Valentine's Day, interestingly enough, he said this on his Facebook page: I don't understand why people who have no faith and don't believe in Christ would want to get hitched in church. The Bible is quite specific that marriage is for men and women. If the state wants to offer civil marriage to the same sex, then that is up to the state, but the state shouldn't impose its rules on places of faith and conscience. In which case his employer, this Trafford Housing Trust, demoted him and cut his pay by 40%. What? That's homosexual fascism. This guy doesn't say anything hateful, doesn't say even anything accusatory about homosexual behavior at all. He just says this is an equality that goes too far, and marriage is defined by the Bible as one man, one woman. That's an absolutely indisputable fact. And so now he's lost his position, lost 40% of his pay, and has to go to court to try to get satisfaction for all of us. He even had some gay activists that have come to his aid and said, look, he didn't discriminate against anyone. No evidence that he ever treated any of his gay housing clients any differently. This is just a witch hunt, gay fascism on parade. Focal Point, AFR Talk.